Hello and welcome. Project ZZR is well and truly on the way. So during the week I spent quite a lot of time stripping an awful lot of parts off the bike. I've not shown it on the video because, to be fair, it is quite straightforward. It is just a matter of undoing nuts and bolts and taking off anything that you can possibly take off. So we're pretty much down at the moment to a sort of rolling chassis, if you like, with the engine still installed. Now I'm still just unsure whether to take that engine out, but I'm not going to worry about that just yet. But I want to today do a little bit of a clean up and just see how easy it is to clean up certain parts of the engine, certain parts of the frame. I also want to take care of those carburetors. I want to get the front end a bit more stripped down, so the wheel off, the brakes and some of the handlebar switchgear removed, just so I can really see the bike, warts and all. Not too many walks, but there may be a few, and really get cracking on the project, because I've got a shed full of bits now that I can be working on, going through, cleaning up and making good. So in this video today, I'm going to do a bit more strip down, get those carburetors sorted, because I've got all the bits now, which is going to be fantastic, and we'll see where we go. I've spent a little bit of time stripping down the carburetors right to the point of an empty casing. And then I treated this to a ultrasonic clean. Did actually 2 runs of it, and I have to say they cut really well, so they are looking like brand new casings ready to go. So I'm really happy with that result. Now I have spent a little bit of money to ensure that I get this job done right. I wasn't overly happy with the state of the jets that were in the carburetor, and the main reason for that is they looked to me like they were kind of aftermarket cheap jets, and I just, I wasn't overly happy with them. So they're new, so clearly somebody's been in here and rejetted the carb, but they were not original genuine Kawasaki jets, so just not overly happy. And the same with the idle jet. The actual stamping of the jet number here is actually quite poor. It's quite crudely done, so that kind of makes me wonder about the quality of these. They're definitely not original, because when you look at the emulsion tube, that is original, and it shows a degree of age, whereas the jets and the idle jet here and the main jet here in comparison are very new. So wasn't overly happy to use those. So I spent a little bit of money. Always need to spend a bit of money to make things right, in my opinion, and under good authority on my mate Sean, I went to Genuine Part, or Kawasaki Genuine Parts, and I've actually bought proper genuine bona fide Kawasaki idle jets of the correct size, and an entire set of main jets to go in. In addition to that, I've also bought all of the little washers that go in between the carburetor bodies for the fuel, and also the breather pipes, to ensure that when they all go back together, they're also going to have brand new O-rings. I said washers, I meant O-rings. And these go onto these little tubes here. And there's several of these that need to be done. Then I purchased a set of new seats and new gaskets as well for that. So really it's time to sort of build the carburetor up. Now if you want to see a video actually on taking a set of these apart, the previous video I did on the XJ900, very similar carburetor setup. I did do a full video of teardown on that. But what I'd like to do with this today is just to show you how to do one, and then I'll get them all made up and then show you how the carbs look once they're done. So first thing I want to do is install the seat, which goes down here into this little hole here. So we'll grab the seat. I'm going to put the little gasket to one side for the moment. Move all my low rings as well, don't need those for the minute. And we'll just quickly cut open this little bag. So in here we get a teeny tiny little O-ring, which is for the idle, sort of the air mixture screw, which I haven't, which is sitting actually in this little tub, and I'll show you that later. We get a new seat with an O-ring already attached, and we get a new float valve with its little hanger already connected. So on the old seat, there was this little tiny filter that just slips over the end, and these new ones don't have it. So I'll just quickly attach that little filter there, little gauze, and I've just put a tiniest little sliver of oil just on that O-ring, just to lubricate it, so that when I screw down the screw, it's not going to catch, so it should just sit quite nicely. And then there's a little screw here which gets screwed in, and when you tighten it down with your JIS screwdriver, pushing on the seat at the same time, that should sit home. And what you're looking for is a nicely seated seat. So next thing, I'm going to put in the brand new idle jet, which in this case is size 35. See through it nice and clearly, so I know that's going to be good. And whenever you're messing around with carburetors, taking out jets and putting new jets in and this sort of thing, always make sure that you do use a nice good quality screwdriver when screwing these down, because the brass itself is very, very easy to actually to damage. Now these jets are size 35, as I mentioned earlier, and you can see they're genuine because they're marked on the top, and the markings are, you know, really nicely done in comparison to whatever tool was used on the previous. So in this case I'm using my little Milwaukee screwdriver, and it's a really nice fit onto the jet itself. And it is just a simple case of dropping it in and tightening it up. Now don't over tighten it, just get it so it nips up, and just give it a little further nip just to make sure that it's sitting correctly. So next thing to go in is the emulsion tube. Now I have cleaned this up with a bit of carb cleaner, and by blasting the carb cleaner straight into the end here, you can actually watch the carb cleaner liquid, if you like, shoot out of these little tiny holes. So I'm more than confident that that's nice and clear, or as clear as it possibly can be. Just give it a quick wipe. Yeah, so she's good to go in. So we just drop that in, and it's an 8mm spanner required just to nip it up. Once again, not overly tighten. And then we'll get our main jet. So size of the main jet from memory is a 138, which I'm led to believe is correct. I guess we'll find out if it isn't. Now they're not the cheapest things in the world, but to be fair, considering these are sort of genuine, they weren't too bad, and I'm more than happy that it's going to make the bike run fantastically, assuming that I've not got any vacuum leaks, because I've also learnt with these bikes it's really important to make sure that you make sure, does that even make sense? Make sure that the airbox is free of any kind of vac leaks, as is also the air induction system, and also the boots that go from, get this around the right way, from here to the engine itself is vacuum leak free. Might get to use my smoke tester actually to verify that. So anyway, so that's your main jet installed and your idle jet. So the next thing I think we'll do is we'll install the air screw. So we're all made up. So you've got spring, little teeny tiny washer, and then the actual little O-ring. And how I like to install these is actually upside down, like that. So I push it in, hold it with my thumb, grab the screwdriver, and then slowly turn clockwise until it starts to resist. Now it's really important with these that you don't over tighten them. So tighten them down just until it comes to a natural stop, like so. And in this case it's kind of stopped at the 10 o'clock and 4 o'clock position. Now I'm going to unwind this out, and I'm going to unwind it. That becomes half, that becomes one turn, that becomes half, and that becomes a quarter. And I'm going to leave it there as a sort of default, as I'm led to believe that's about as accurate as I can be. So the next thing to go on will be the float itself. So what you've got here, and there's a video actually on how to adjust the float height, a little tiny video I made, a little 3-minute video, so I've put that up there right now of how to do that. But essentially what you've got is your float, you've got a pin that goes through, and then you have your new valve which essentially hangs off that tab. Yeah, hopefully that can be seen. So it's just kind of just hanging nicely. Okay, then you have your little bar, and essentially the way you do this, quite straightforward, get the valve to drop into the seat, and then like so, and then the bar lines up, and then that kind of pushes on, and then there's a screw that goes in and tightens down on the bar. So I'll show you that once it's all put together. It's a bit fiddly to sort of see, but you can kind of get the idea. Once again, never need to over tighten these things. So there you go, and that's what you're looking for. So the bar is seated, screw is seated, and you can see that valve, I don't know if you can see on there, maybe if I go this way it might be clearer. You can see that valve is opening and closing. And then where it's at its resting point, once again, that video, that's where you then take your measurement for your float height. So I'll quickly do that now. So that's kind of all there is to do within the chamber itself. So now we're clear and able to have the fun that is fitting these gaskets. And it is just a simple matter of pressing it into the channel. Just take your time, and once you get it to sit, it should stay enough, like so, that you can then introduce the two halves. And then screw them down. Excellent, so that's all reattached, and I'm more than happy with that. Next thing I need to do will be to very quickly reinstall or reintroduce the slider. So make sure when you do this, you first pop your needle in first, make sure that's properly in. Also make sure this little tiny copper or little brass pipe is connected into this little rubber end, because that needs to locate into here. So you pop your slider in, making sure that you don't damage the needle. And that needle then first needs to locate into through the emulsion tube, and then this will drop down, and then you very carefully push that little pin into place, or the little pipe into place. Then make sure that you can seat your rubber diaphragm, checking for any kind of damage or wear. Now if you're not able to get that to stay in place, you can use a tiny amount of RTV, not much, you really don't need much, tiniest little amount, just to hold it and make a seal. Making sure then you also pop in your spring and that little plastic piece. Locate the spring onto the end of that, rotate round, double check that you're not catching anything, and you'll feel it very positively click into place, and you know you've got that right because that all sits, and it all sits flush. You'll also know you got it right when you hold pressure and this returns nicely and you hear the vacuum. You can also blow air into here and this should rise. Okay, by blowing some air into there, that will cause this to rise up naturally, and that feels absolutely perfect. So I'm more than happy with that. So now I can introduce my screws, just button it all down. So what I'll do now is I'll get this one finished off, and then I'll do all the others, and then I will show you all the carbs all rebuilt, ready to go. £110 later, with all new jets and all new O-rings that go between all of the fuel tubes and the air tube or the breather tubes that sit here and here, I'm really satisfied with the result. I've got a really nice looking and hopefully working set of carburetors that are now ready to go straight on the bike. And there may well be a little bit of adjustment made or needing to be made, and that can be done by adjusting the air screws here, and of course the all important balancing that will need to be done. But I'm really happy. They look fantastic. I know they're going to be good. I've already done a pressure test and tilt so that I can actually check that all the seats are seating and not letting by, so I'm pretty confident that they are good to go. So the last thing is just plug back in the idle adjuster, which is something that I actually forgot once, which was really annoying because I forgot to insert it and reinstalled everything, got everything built up on the 1100, only to find that this wasn't there. And I'm not joking, to get that screwed into there, that little chap there, when they're on the bike, is not an easy feat. I'm just going to eyeball a quick idle, so a little bit of a gap. And I can see they're reasonably balanced actually looking, because you can look across each of these and sort of visually see roughly how well they sit. I think that one there is a little more closed. So there'll be adjustments to be made, but once the bike's running, I'll put it on a high idle initially, get the bike running, and then we'll adjust these 3 screws here with a balancer that I've got made by Carb, and we'll get this absolutely dialed in, and I'm pretty confident, or hopefully we can get it running as nice, if not nicer, than my 1100. Never thought I'd say that. Got this crack in the front nose cone. In fact, it's more than a crack. This whole piece here will actually remove if I pushed it out. So what I've managed to do is I've pushed it and realigned it and got it absolutely as flush as I can possibly get it. So I'm going to use one of these, which is a plastic welder, and they take these little tiny staples, I don't know if you can see that, and what you do, the idea is you push it onto the end here like so, and then it passes current through, which heats it up and allows you to actually weld and bridge cracks in plastic and things like that. It's a very effective way of doing it. Once I've actually got the piece to be sort of stable and welded, and I use many of these little staples, then I'm then going to trim off the little lugs, which you'll see, and form a very strong point, because this is structural. This is actually going to be supporting a lot of the weight of this headlight and nose cone, so it's got to be right. The way it was done before was just a botch repair, in my opinion. It was never going to last, and in fact I was able to just pull off the whole repair, so I know it's not correct. So let's plug in my little gun, and I want to do this bit by bit, and I'm just pushing at the moment with my finger against the actual piece, and I just want to make sure that I keep it aligned. So yeah, first one's going to go in, so I'm going to heat up this until it goes red hot like so, and I'm just going to push it into the plastic and then I'm going to let it cool for a second and then release. And what that's done now is that's created a weld. I'm going to do the same on the other end because I want to get it aligned first and make sure that it's fully aligned. And then I'm going to put a whole series of these all the way around until I'm satisfied that it's good. So once again, heating it up, pushing it in, and I might just do a little twist and release. There we go. So just double checking. Now when you're also doing this, you want to make sure that you don't allow it to be too hot in one place for any amount of time, because you can actually risk pushing through the plastic with this because it's very hot. So I'm going to do a few more of these and I'll be back in just a moment to show the result. Now I've finished the initial phase, which is to weld it. I'm actually very happy with how that's gone. So you can see there's many staples that have gone in across all elements of it, all the way. Now I had to be a little bit careful with this edge because I had to actually push, because the crack actually sits on this thicker part. So I had to actually push the staple in this way and down at the same time, so it actually made sort of contact, and I'm really quite pleased with how it's gone. The next step is to slowly, and you want to wear eye protection when you do this, clip off each of these prongs, and then I can then take a little Dremel with a rotating sanding disc and I can just get them flush, and then I'll then go to the next stage. So I'm just going to quickly do that now. Just take me a moment and I'll show you once I've done that. Excellent, so I'm really happy with that. So that's that little phase done. I was able to lay down some additional plastic to cover all of those little staples, and yeah, I'm actually quite happy with that because it's incredibly solid. I mean, there's no way that's going to cause any problems. I just want to just quickly dress that surface there a little bit, just to make sure that it's going to sit properly on the bracket, but I can't see it being a problem. So I just use them very quickly with my little Dremel. I think that'll do. It's more than strong enough. Now I'm going to have to do a little tiny bit of filling on the other side because whoever tried to repair it, I'll try and get a to show you. So whoever tried to repair it in the past, they didn't do a particularly good job of sort of covering things. So yeah, there's a little bit of filling I need to do there and a little bit of touch up, but once the mirror's on, it will barely be seen. You know, push come to shove, I could replace the whole unit, but I don't want to do that because the rest of it condition is really nice and all these bits are intact. So if I can just put a little tiny bit of filler in there, a little bit of putty filler just to smooth it out, and a little bit of touch up paint, it won't look too bad. There's a little bit there where the heat got quite hot, and it's just warped it ever so slightly, which I'm a little bit disappointed by, but say this is always a journey of discovery. But I think, you know, push come to shove, I mean, that's going to be the only defect on the entire bike. I might even just be able to fill that, smooth it all off, and then just try and blend in and lacquer up, and I think it will, essentially disappear. So I'll get some putty ordered, and hopefully this colour, and then can make that really nice. Otherwise, at least it's structurally strong, and that was the main concern. This mesh you see before you is the wiring loom for the bike. Now, what I want to do with this, really, because there weren't any issues with the bike as far as it running, is to clean things up. I'm just going to an awful lot of trouble to make sure that the bike is looking as good as possible. So it would be wrong of me not to try and sort this out. So what I'm looking to do is to sort and repair anything that doesn't look right. So for instance, there was an aftermarket some kind of an alarm or immobilizer installed, and in order to fit it, they had to extend this wire so that it would run to the immobilizer. So this is going to need a rejoin, a solder, or a crimp. Now I've got some crimps that I'd like to show you, and also there's lots of bits of wire here with these Scotch clips. Now I personally hate these, I cannot abide them, so this may force me to have to cut the wire and rejoin it properly because the insulation will be compromised. And short of taking the pin out, I've got no means to heat shrink tube that. There's other bits and bobs, and I want to give the entire wiring loom a physical clean and tidy up any loose bits of like here, where we've got some loose bits of insulation that are starting to come away. And as I showed when it was in the bike, this was the bit that needed rewrapping, so that's all going to get done as well. Now there's nothing to suggest that I need to do any continuity checking. And for those that don't know what a continuity check is, it's where you take one end of the wire, for instance this plug, probe one end here and find where the wire actually terminates the other end of it. Now this is a yellow and black, and I would suggest that there is the other end of it, and what you're doing is you're running a meter across both points to see if you have continuity. And what continuity is a solid connection between the two. So I will be having a look, and I'll also look on various parts of the loom where there are repair, or what I perceive to be repairs, where the insulation for whatever reason is cut back and there's something that I feel isn't right. Now, as I said before, this particular wiring loom seemed to check out okay, so there's nothing to suggest there's been any dodgy repairs. But if someone's been in here at some point, chances are they've repaired it, or they've done a repair, or they've modified it in some way. And just being pernickety that I am, I've seen some really dodgy repairs in my time, and I'm really fussy about things being right. So just going to take a little bit of time now to clean up, and I'll be back in a moment to show you how I make some of these connections good. Right, so I want to make a nice connection here, and the best way I found to do it is to use some of these little joiners. So it's a solderless crimp join, but as you can see, it's quite neat, and it's designed to go into a crimp tool, so give me an opportunity to actually show you how that works. So what I'm going to do is cut myself a reasonable amount of heat shrink tubing, then make a cut in each, or strip back the wire on each. I'm not going to go too crazy, you don't need too much wire exposed actually for this. Okay, so just about that much on each. You grab one of your connectors and you grab the tool itself, and the tool is tapered, so you've got a sort of narrow end and a wide end. And the wide end is to take the insulation, the narrow end is to take the actual wire you're crimping. So you put the crimp upside down in position so it's locked and ready to go, just like so. Get your wire, push it in so that the insulation is sitting in the wider part, and you crimp away. Then release, and what that gives you is a very nice strong connection. And then you do exactly the same once you've remembered to put in your heat shrink, and then you do exactly the same the other end. So you load it into the crimp like so. So So it's ready to receive the wire. Insert your wire and then crimp and then release. And then you end up with a very, very nice, good quality, strong connection. Just means to put your heat shrink over it, get yourself an appropriate sort of heat shrink torch. A lot of people use lighters and that works, but I like to use a heat gun. And then we'll just heat up that heat shrink until it shrinks round the connection. And that's it. Now, the wire is now one. By the time that all gets clamped up and bound up, you would never know the repair was there. And that's kind of how I like to roll with these. Now, I'm going to do a continuity check on this particular wire, just to make sure that connection is good. So, continuity is nice and straightforward. So you rotate this round until you get to your audio continuity. And essentially the way this works, once I've connected my probes, by turning on the multimeter, by connecting the two ends, you're going to get a beep. So it was the brown wire that we joined, so I'll put the one end of the probe in there, and then we then find the other end of the brown wire, which is pretty much the first wire that I found that's brown, and that tells me that bridge connection is absolutely grand. There's no problems with that whatsoever. So I'm more than happy with that repair now, so I can bind this up. Now there's two types of wiring loom tape that I use, depending on your preference. So if it's internal, like for cars and things like that, there's a fabric tape, which is pretty good. Or there's this new stuff which I found, which is equivalent to actually what's already on there. So I've never used this before, so we'll give it a go. And the whole premise of this stuff is it's not sticky to touch, but it sticks on itself, which I find pretty amazing. So we'll wrap a first bit on. See how we get on with it. Cut a little bit off so it's easier to handle, and then I'm just going to wrap this round, and it's not sticky at all, but somehow it sticks to itself, which is really quite nice. And it's very thin, so it's going to give that flexibility that you would have ordinarily had. Yeah, clever. It's a bit like clean film in a certain respects. As I've got a little bit here, I'll just go back over. And there we go, one nice repair, and that looks clean compared to the rest of it, of course, because it's shiny, but I'm more than happy with that. That's a nice repair, and that'll be great. So I'm just going to go over and do a few other bits and pieces for this loom. So there was the bits that I had for the coils, which were these wires, which looked particularly tatty, and I've kind of pulled back all of the insulation on those, so I'm going to bind all these ones up now and then just go through the rest of it. So yeah, once I've done it, I'll be more than happy. I'm going to make some similar repairs that I've just made to these scotch clipped areas, because when I remove, you can see when I remove the scotch clip from here, like so, the way they work is they pierce the wire. So that in itself is potentially a broken connection. In fact, yeah, you can feel it. It's very loose. So I'll cut that and rejoin in very much the same manner. So I'll get on and do that, and I'll show you the result when it's all done. After going through every single part of this wiring loom and double checking everything, I'm more than satisfied now with the repairs that have been made. In total, I found 5 Scotch clips that I had to remove, plus 1 repair that I had to make. So it really is worth going through it all and making sure it's correct. This, at the end of the day, is the nervous system of the bike, and time spent on the bench looking through the loom and making sure that it all checks out is time well spent, because when it's all installed on the bike, troubleshooting an electrical issue because of a broken wire or a dodgy connection is just not fun. You know, it takes absolutely ages. Something else that's a good little tip is when you are inspecting everything and there was a corroded plug or corroded contact here that I could see, is get yourself a it's a carb brush kit actually for carburettors, but it's also particularly useful, I find, for cleaning these contacts. And if you use a contact cleaner or spray, and just spray some in there and just give that a little bit of a clean, if you happen to spot something that's particularly grubby and needs a bit of a clean up, then once again, that's time well spent, in my opinion. So don't press too hard, you don't want to damage it, but you just want to get something in there to give it a bit of a clean. And then the contact cleaner itself is amazing. It does a really good job. So with that said, that's now ready to install into the bike. I've said it a few times now, the ABBA Skylift is by far the best bit of kit I've found for this sort of job. Just being able to get the whole bike up in the air this sort of decent level is really good. So I can have a good look at things now, and I've noticed the front brake is dragging heavily, and friend Sean the other day mentioned when he pushed it that this was dragging quite significantly. So I'm lucky in as far as I've got a replacement set of calipers to go straight onto this bike when I was rebuilding the ZZR, so hopefully that can be resolved relatively quickly. Forks themselves, not too bad. You know, they've been cleaned up historically, because I can see there's a little bit of scoring where somebody's had a go with some wire wool or something similar, so I can only imagine that they've tried to clean up some of the corrosion on or slight rust spots that were on there, but it doesn't seem to be so low that it's actually affecting the seals. So I may end up replacing those, but I'm not sure at this point. But we'll have a better look once I've got them off. So I think the next job is I'm going to get the calipers off. Going to take off this little T-piece here, and also remove the master cylinder as one complete unit. So 2 calipers pulled through this way, this undone, and the master cylinder off, and the whole thing will come away as one, just so I can have a good look at it. I may also get some braided lines, because I think they're much better than these OEM sort of stock pipes, and to be fair, I just don't know how original these are. They may even be the original ones for the bike, in which case probably a long overdue replacement. Whilst I'm here, I'll do a quick check of the head bearing. Always makes it look like I'm making love to the bike, but I'm not. I'm just wiggling it a little bit, and there doesn't seem to be any play. I mean, it rotates nicely, nice and smooth, so I'm hopeful I won't need to do anything with that. I might just take it all apart, grease it all up and put it back together, and then retorque it to the correct spec. I think that's all I'll need to do. So yeah, I think I'll get the front disassembled very quickly, and I'll be back in just a moment. Cool, so there we have it. Doesn't really take that long to get the front end stripped at all, really. It's only just a matter of a few bolts. Have a good look at how things go back together, so when you do end up rebuilding it becomes a little easier, or get yourself a very good manual to be absolutely sure. So now we're at this stage, it really is only just a couple of bolts to get the forks out. So it doesn't take that much effort at all. So you've got what I call a triple clamp system, where there's 2 bolts here and the bolt here. So by undoing these and leaving the top means we can get this loose and then just slacken off the top whilst holding the suspension leg and just give it a little twist, and it should just drop free. So that won't take long at all. So we'll quickly whip it off. I always find with this sort of work, try not to use an impact until you've got everything loose, because you don't really want to force anything or break anything. So now everything's loose, it is just a simple matter of that. Rotate and let it fall out. And there we go, on the fork leg. Go pop that somewhere safe. And then we'll just do the same with the other one. I have to say, these weren't particularly tight. Certainly not spec. That's close. I should just be able to drop this whole lower cowling off without risk of damaging it, he says, as it falls to the floor and scratches. Let's hope not, eh? So drop 1 and drop 2, and there we go. And now we've got good access now to have a look and see exactly what we need to do. And they were quite rusty, so it'll take a little bit of work to get those off. To be fair, I may not even need to take this apart. I might just be able to keep it all as one and refit it in exactly the same way that I've just taken it off, but we'll put that to one side for the moment. And there we go. You can now get a really good look at everything else. Now, when I was rebuilding the 1100, the one thing that was a little bit unicorn was finding a decent oil cooler. Now I have to say, this one looks in really good order. A little clean-up it would benefit from, and so does the radiator, because it's had the protector on from quite early on by the looks of it. It's done a really nice job of protecting everything, so I'm very confident that's in good order. Can now get good access to the rest of the exhaust and see what that's like, and that seems to be good too. So yeah, I think it's just going to be a major cleanup here and just make nice. I think that's all that's going to be required. Fabulous. So back end is going to be very much the same as the front, so just take off as much as I can. So I'm going to have a little go now at stripping some parts of the back end, and I'll be back very shortly. Had a quick go at cleaning up one of the wheels just to see, and yeah, they're in fantastic condition. So that's going to look amazing, as is the back actually. The back wheel is also equally as good. So yeah, there's going to be no issues there at all with the wheels. They're going to look stunning. So with all the bits all over the place, I've kind of set myself a bit of a challenge. Fortunately, I've got a very good memory for this sort of stuff, but you know, do take pictures as you disassemble and try and keep things in together. So these are all associated parts, and as are all the other associated parts in the other boxes that I've got in storage. So in total there's actually 4 of these boxes and 1 big, and I've filled them all so far, and I've still got bits lying around all over the place. But take your time And with a good manual, you can get it back together. I'm not at all fazed by this because, say, I've been there before with this one, so none of this is an issue. This now is going to give me the opportunity to really clean up all these extra areas. Now, yes, I could have just bolted everything back, together and cleaned the bike, given it a bit of a detail, and probably got by. But I like to go that extra mile and make things look really impressively nice. So what I'm going to do now is remove all the years of grime. So there will be the odd scratch, but I'm really not fussed about that. Getting it cleaned and getting everything looking nice, I know is possibly a bit over the top for some people, but to me it's worth it. And I want this, as I said before, to be as nice as possible. So I hope you're enjoying the series so far and the little bit of a restoration that I've got going. It's quite scary when you think how much I've taken apart, but I love it. This is what it's all about, and making these old bikes look as nice as possible, and this one I think will be a stunner. So if you want to see more content, then you might want to consider subscribing, and if you like this particular video, give it a thumbs up. I'd really appreciate it. I can't wait to see you in the next one.